What is going on, guys? It's Mr. Banks coming at you live with another trade recap. Now, as you guys know, we do a live trade recap of this Google trade that we took today. I ended up going over 190%. As you guys can see, I do walk through all of my trades with the group here. Let's get into it. Nice little trade recap. Why I took this trade at open. Well, as you guys know, there is the BBR strategy that we use, but let's go into just pure levels at this time. So as you guys know, I do love this 1 hour time frame. What am I seeing here? Let me take off these EMAs real quick. But what am I seeing here on this 1 hour time frame? Well, to me, I'm seeing a nice big consolidation, accumulation, if you want to call it, just a big old, good old fashioned range that Google has now been in for the past week, right? Today's Monday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, since last Monday. So what am I seeing in this range? Well, one thing that caught my eye was we had a nice big liquidity sweep underneath this range that we had developed. Now, the liquidity sweep is still at another major level here down at 130, which is a pretty big level. If we take a look at the 4 hour, we can see we're still technically, right, haven't broken structure here, right? We're still creating a higher low here, still haven't broken this structure down below essentially 128, right? So we're still creating a higher low here on the higher time frames. As you guys know, we need to be looking at the higher time frames. What are we seeing here? Still creating a higher low. If we go down to the 1 hour, we can see we have this nice big range, liquidity sweep underneath, right back into the range, holding, holding, holding. And then we had a lift off back into the supply area today that ran us almost 200% on the trade. Now, if we take a look at the smaller time frames here as well, we can see, right? We can see what is this range, right? This range between essentially 130, but really the range was between 131 and 134, right? We could see 134 here, 131, 134, 131, 134, right? This big old range. So we know that a break out of this 134 is most likely going to send us. So now I did take this trade a little bit early, right at open. But one way you could have played this is break of the range, right? This was a very classic setup of breakout of the range. We broke out, retested that range at 134. So you can see here, here's the range support, resistance, resistance, resistance. It's just a big support resistance flip as well, right? Major support, turn into resistance, resistance. We break out, retest for that next level up. So you could have taken this trade at 134 from the range support resistance flip breakout here. Now let's get into the BBR strategy a little bit. Sorry, it's a little quick. I am creating a whole course for you guys. So this will be a part of the course for you that will be available very soon. But what do we use in the BBR strategy? Well, we use the 200 EMA, right? We use the 48, the 8, the 13, the 21. So we could see here this green line is the 13 EMA. This blue line is the 48. Now we are bullish if the 13 crosses the 48 up, right? 13 has crossed the 48 up. We are above the 200 EMA here on the 5 minute. Let me get rid of these ones just to show you purely with the basics of this, right? So if the 13 crosses the 48 here, right, up, that's going to be a bullish sign for us. Now, if it crossed down, that would be bearish. And if we were below the 200 EMA, we'd be bearish as well, but we're not, right? We're above the 200. 13 crossed the 48 up, right? Here's the 48, here's the 13. We crossed up. Beautiful, beautiful setup for that BBR strategy. Now, another thing with the BBR strategy is playing the break and hold of the pre-market high and yesterday's high, which would have been Friday's high. Now, I did take this a little bit early just because, I mean, from the higher time frames, I saw this setup. It's also essentially a inverse head and shoulders as well here, right? Shoulder, head, shoulder, push up, right? So we also have an inverse head and shoulders on the higher time frame. We had the BBR going for us. So everything for me, we had that liquidity sleep. Everything for me was looking at Google for a breakout up today. Now, did I know it was going to go almost 200%? No, I did not know that. But, it was geared up for a massive breakout. It was lagging compared to the other big tech. And so it was on my top watch for this morning. So going back to the BBR, a couple ways you could have played it. You could have played that break and hold of 134, as we can see here. But one thing to keep in mind of this 134 break and hold was pre-market high, yesterday's high. Now we know if we're above pre-market high, that's also Confluence to be bullish. And if we're above pre-market high and yesterday's high, that's double Confluence to be bullish. And then once we broke above that 134, that's just a third confluence of extra bullish. Now, why is this bullish? Get this question a lot. Why is above pre-market high, yesterday high, bullish? Well, that's because this is where heavy sellers were present, right? So if these are big resistance zones and there was heavy sellers in this area, pre-market high, yesterday high, and we overtake those areas, right? So essentially the buyers are now overtaking the sellers. So if the buyers are overtaking the sellers at these level, what makes sense? Well, if we know that stocks only trade level to level to level, right? Back and forth all day long. If we overtake a level from big sellers, from buyers, well, those buyers are more than likely going to push now to the next level, which I had here about 135, 136. 135.50, 136. So let me say that one more time. The reason pre-market high and the reason yesterday's high are so important is because if we break and hold above those, right, these are areas that show there are heavy sellers present. So if the buyers can overtake an area where there are heavy sellers present, then more than likely the buyers are going to take it to the next level, right? Because since stocks play level to level, if buyers overtake a level of sellers, pre-market high, yesterday's high, and this 134 range breakout, as we could see, right? 134 support resistance flip and a range breakout. Since we overtook that, this 134 would have been ideal for most traders to have taken the trade. Now, the eye to catch this trade at open definitely takes a lot of practice, definitely takes a lot of screen time to get there. But we had inverse head and shoulders here, right? Head, shoulder, shoulder. Uh, Liquidity sleep underneath the range. It was gearing up for a breakout. It was also lagging compared to the 7. But for everyone else to play the BBR strategy along with those levels, above pre-market, waiting until above pre-market high, waiting until above yesterday's high, and that 134 support resistance flip would have given you a beautiful A+ setup entry, along with that 1348 cross. We're above the 200. Just everything together makes this an absolute beautiful A+ setup for the BBR strategy. You can also see that the BBR strategy is also just playing off of levels, right? So it's teaching you how to just understand price action even when you don't use the EMAs, right? So you'll get to a point where you don't need these EMAs. You'll understand the price action that's occurring just by playing level to level. Now, I have holding trend here, breaking trend here. Why do I have that? Well, we do have a couple more EMAs that we like to use, which is the 21 and the 21, the 8, and the 48. We already know about the 1348 cross. So how do we use the 21 and 13? Well, our 48 is also used pretty much as our last line of defense on any pullback. Say this pulled back to the 48, as for holding runners, right? So we can use the 8, 13, 21, and 48 as our trend indicators. Now, typically all we need is between the 8 and the 21, as we see here. We have that 21 as a defense. Usually when it gets back to the 48, that is pretty far back, and we typically don't want to use that as a last line of defense. But sometimes it is necessary, and we can use the 48. Say we came up here and we bounced off the 48. I mean, if we took an entry down here, we're still up on our runners. No reason to cut until that 48 gets broken down, right? Does that make sense? If we're all the way up here and we pull back to the 48, we're still going to be above, way above our entry, so we can still hold those runners for another move up. That's why the 48 technically is the last line of defense, but usually this 21 works the best for the last line of defense. Another thing that is for holding the trend, right? So you can see that's holding the trend to stay in as long as possible and hold runners as long as possible. Now, another thing I want to point out is the divergence, right? So when we get these EMAs and they're diverging, right, they're spreading apart, that is showing us that a trend is forming and a trend has formed. Now, when the EMAs start to bunch together or get smashed like this, right, you can barely even see them. They're all pushed together. That's showing us that there is no trend. I mean, we can clearly see that when they diverge like this, there is a trend. And we can see we are sideways, no trend. The EMAs now get smashed together, showing us that there is no trend. So another good thing about this BBR strategy is it shows you when there is a trend and when there isn't a trend. Now, we can obviously see this, but as a newer trader, this helps a lot understanding what is trending, what is moving sideways, right? Trend, divergence of the EMAs, smashed EMAs all together, showing us sideways action and no trend forming. Now, you can hold runners until, right, the break of that trend. We can see that there's no trend. We're breaking the trend. We're getting a full body candle below that level. We can now sell out of our runners since that trend, this trend that we have been riding has now been broken and we're now breaking to the downside, making sure that we take full profit on our runners at this point. Hope you guys enjoyed this. There's a ton more videos on the BBR strategy, but I wanted to give you a nice quick overview on this trade that we took for 193% using the BBR strategy, using our levels, using chart patterns, using a range, right? There's so many things that went into this. Just make it simple, right? Make it simple. Inverse head and shoulders, breakout of a range. This 134 was the most ideal for any trader using this strategy to take that entry right at that level. Why? 1348 cross up above the 200, above pre-market high, above yesterday's high here, and a break and hold out of that range at 134. This would have been the most ideal entry. Obviously, I have more screen time, so I took it a little bit early, but 134, 134, 134 would have been perfect for all of you. Hope you guys enjoyed this. This is the BBR strategy. If you have any questions, drop them in the channel below. Congrats to everyone as they banked today. So congrats to everyone in the chat. Okay, my name is Mr. Banks. I will see you guys next time on another trade recap.